Full Melt Show is intended for a mature audience. It contains adult themes, adult content, and sometimes adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
It's the Full Melt Show.
A Texas family says they are medical refugees living in Colorado because what their little daughter needs is outlawed here.
She okay?
Yeah, she's starting to have a few.
Oh, there she goes.
Hannah has debilitating epileptic seizures, and marijuana is the only treatment that helps her. Her parents moved from Crosby to Colorado Springs, where pot is legal.
Our Kevin Reese traveled to Colorado to look at the profitable but controversial pot industry and how it seems to be helping. Hannah.
Can you say hi this morning?
It's sunrise on a Tuesday morning in Colorado Springs.
Say good morning.
A home in a neighborhood at the foot of Pikes Peak.
I'll fix your hair.
Where a sleepy little 5-year-old.
Are you pretty this morning? Yeah, you are pretty.
Starts her day with a red bow in her hair and a tube in her stomach, feeding her breakfast.
She still has some days that are a little rough, but...
And clean?
You want me to clean them?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
But the days used to be more rough for Hannah Lowe and her family. She has a genetic disorder, Dravet syndrome, and a lifetime of seizures that pharmaceutical drugs can't control. So a year and a half ago, they packed a U-Haul in Crosby, Texas, and moved to Colorado.
We left everything.
For an amount of concentrated marijuana oil that Texas considers illegal.
This little bottle, that's it.
There are two main components in marijuana, CBD and THC. Texas recently approved a very low level of THC for patients with severe forms of epilepsy. But Hannah and her family will stay in Colorado because they say she still needs more THC than Texas law will allow.
I know of at least 15 other families here, all from Texas, that they're here for the same reason we are.
Hannah got her first dose in April.
Give me a kiss, blow me a kiss. Oh, that's sweet girl.
And now, with a nurse at her side,
All right.
she's able to go to public kindergarten full-time. Her parents believe that small daily dose of CBD and THC have decreased her seizures by 85%.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Clearly, as a mom, we all have empathy for that.
But opponents of the $1 billion a year marijuana industry in Colorado are concerned about children like Hannah, that they're taking an oil tested for potency and purity only by private companies, not by a federal agency like the FDA, with no long-term track record to prove it really works.
Really, the pressure should be on the epileptic community and the doctors, you know, to do the research and to make sure that these aren't only anecdotal stories.
Are you ready?
We watched one anecdotal story
Go.
firsthand. Hannah still has seizures. She always will. And this one hit her on the playground next door.
You okay?
Yeah, she's starting to have a few.
Oh, there
Nope,
she
she's
goes.
done.
And as they rushed her inside for the medical procedure,
Lay her on the floor, babe.
they've done now hundreds of times,
All right, babe.
her mom gave her one small additional dose of THC in a syringe. Her seizures stopped.
She's done.
She used to have seizures that lasted more than an hour.
Oh, better.
This one lasted 4 minutes. Her seizures used to require an ambulance ride to the hospital. In Colorado, she hasn't been to a hospital in over a year.
Come to my home and you see her go what she goes through, and then tell me that you won't legalize this.
And we left on a leap of faith. We can give her a better quality of life. Why wouldn't you, just for the sake of the child?
For the sake of their child, they're staying in Colorado. Haven't seen their Texas relatives in a year and a half. No chance to see grandparents, except by computer.
You're going to say that she can't be with family and she can't go back to her home state, all because of a bottle of oil. And it's sad. We consider ourselves medical refugees. This is a basic need for her, and we are a refugee in our own country.
In Colorado, they refer to pot legalization as the grand experiment, an experiment that had Hannah alert again and ready to go back to school the next day. An experiment and a car ride to kindergarten. Her parents' wish was possible, back home in Texas. In Colorado Springs, Kevin Reese, KHOU, 11 News.
Are you high? What are you talking about?
This is the Full Melt.
The Full Melt Show. A marijuana discussion about news, culture, politics, and lifestyle. FullMelt.com. Toll free. 844-420-TALK. 844-420-TALK.
Whoa, what happened? The music. Where'd the music go? I know what happened. I already know what happened. I'm telling you I know what happened. Where did it go, though? It's got to be. There it is. Good Lord. I can't stand it. Did something go right for once? Just one thing? Once. Live from the PetPain.com studios, I was about to say, it is the Full Melt Show. With a little lump in the way. I don't know when I tripped over there. That was really weird. But I'll tell you what. The number one thing on the radio is, I guess, if I was to give you a radio talk show secret, the number one thing about being on the radio is you got to stay relatable. Look, if you can't relate to the story that I'm talking about, click. Goodbye. It's got to be relatable. Number one thing. So, there was this story, this little thing that happened back when I was a kid. And nobody's going to be able to relate to this, I guess, directly. You'll be able to relate overall, but you won't be able to relate directly unless you've been interviewed in a television news segment for the local news. And if you've ever been through that process, and it doesn't matter whether you were in a news piece or whether you were in a fluff piece, like it doesn't matter if your neighbor's house burnt down and the TV cameras had you talking, making comments, or if it was just something about how you made a cool design for Christmas out in front of your yard. It doesn't matter. If you've been through that, then you'll relate to this story. So I'm a little kid. I'm in elementary school, and we're one of the only elementary schools. This is way back at, this is not elementary school. I'll take it back. It's middle school. This is in the Fenton Middle School in Fenton, Michigan. And this is in the very early 80s. Very early 80s. We're talking, what's that movie? They just did the National Lampoon's Vacation. That movie was coming out about this time. So I'm in a television, like we have a side class that we participate in, like kind of extracurricularly. And one of our other classes was letting us spend some time from that class that related to this, extracurricular activity. It was a club kind of thing. And we were into making television programs. We were all interested in media. And, really this group comprised some of the most intelligent people in the class. Like the smartest people in the class were in this little group. And I wasn't the smartest. There were people above me. But I remember that the news caught wind of our little expedition on filming. And this is the first time that I caught a glimpse of this ideal. And this is ultimately the point that I want to make relating to the news that you just heard about the medical marijuana refugees in Texas. That when those guys come out with their cameras and they do their little thing, they'll do it. And I used to do this with audio tape, just to have a camera around. For radio, I did this a lot. The same kind of packaging of news. But they came out and they did these interviews. One of them was with my friend Lee, and one of them was with me, and they interviewed a couple other people, like a teacher, and I think the principal. I don't know. They interviewed a bunch of people, and they were just making, it was kind of a fluff news story piece about us kids trying to do our own little news show. And we were doing our own little news show. I mean, it certainly wasn't. We didn't have any editing gear. I mean, it was very rudimentary. But the idea caught wind of the news media, and they thought it was a cool story. And it was a cool story. But what they filmed, what they shot, and what they went back to the editing room with and cut out and crafted from what they captured was not what we were doing. Well, they weren't misrepresenting what we were doing, but it certainly wasn't the story I would have told with what they had captured. And my point is this, that the news media, when they do this kind of stuff, like this piece that you heard about the Texas medical people, the Texas medical refugees in Colorado over the oil thing with their kids. When they come out and film you and talk to you, and then they go back, they're like, well, we want to tell a story. See, it doesn't really matter to you. Remember, I said it's got to be relatable. You got to be able to relate to the story, or else click. I want to go away. It doesn't matter. I don't care about you because I can't relate. So when they go back there, they want to tell a story that you can relate to, and it may not necessarily be the actual story that happened. It may reflect something that isn't really characteristic overall of what occurred. And so they can kind of bend and twist things a little bit by editing and only playing the parts that tell the story they're trying to tell, and that's my point. That although, yes, so there is some bias to media, but it generally doesn't happen intentionally. Sometimes it happens accidentally. Bias is something that sneaks into news journalism all the time, unintentionally, just from the way you cover it. But when you outright start thinking about the story you want to tell versus the story that happened, and this is a fluff story, so it doesn't really matter from a journalistic standpoint. It's just something to catch your interest. It was based on something real. It just wasn't that, accurate to a strong degree. But when I saw the piece on TV, I was so disappointed because the guy at the news media actually fed me a line. That's the degree to which they were trying to tell a story. And I had no idea what the line meant from a technical standpoint because it was a technical line. He says, I want you to say this for me. I'm going to ask you a question. When you answer it, you just tell me that because they won't let you operate. And I said, okay. And so he asked me the question, and I answered it that way. And I only did it because I knew he would use me in the piece. I'm just a little kid. I mean, I'm in middle school. It was like the 6th or 7th or 8th grade. I don't remember which one it was. I really don't. But it doesn't matter. I'm just this little kid. And he gave me a line, and I said it. And they used that in the piece. They didn't use any of the other stuff that I said or we talked about that I thought was interesting about what we were doing, that mattered to me. And if it mattered to me, it probably would have mattered to the people that you were, telling our story about, right? Those guys can go back, and I did it myself when I had to tell a story that had to fit in the framework of what I'm doing. The real story couldn't get told because there's not enough time to tell it. So I've got to choose how much of the story I can leave in my piece because I'm limited in time to 2 minutes and 35 seconds tops. That's really if you're going overboard with it. If it's more than 2 minutes and 35 seconds clip, they're cutting it out. The news editor won't even use it in the newscast. For these little, same thing with television news. You'll notice those little live shots, those little cutaways where they did a little report earlier and it's on tape when they cut away to themselves talking about what happened and tell the story. Those things are only a couple minutes long, or else people tune out. They can't stand it anymore. They're like, oh, you're killing me already. On to something else. Their attention span is way too short. So these guys in Texas, they didn't really tell the story right. And they weren't biased. They were telling it from the standpoint of the prohibitionist message. But you got to remember, in places like Texas and in other places across the country, because we're in Michigan where medical marijuana is legal here, we're going for legalized 2016 with MI legalized. Not everyone across the country has it that way.
You're getting the full melt.
What's up with these things, Victor?
We decided to give ourselves stickers for each feature we release.
We read about 10,000 suggestions a week to create features that, as traders, we'd want to use.
10,000 suggestions? Who reads all of those?
He does.
For all the confidence you need, TD Ameritrade. You got this.
It's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571.
Got something to hide? Canalock offers discreet and effective storage solutions that destroy odor, so nobody knows. Canalock is a patented charcoal-activated bag that discreetly stores your marijuana. Canalock is made from the same material as military chemical warfare suits. Get yours at Canalock.com. Visit Canalock.com to learn more about no-smell technology.
Introducing Sacred Elements, a place for natural and alternative healing for the mind, body, and soul. Sacred Elements. It's one place, all solutions.
Registered, licensed, certified, ordained.
Sacred Elements.
Massage, hypnosis, Reiki.
Sacred Elements.
Raindrop, aroma and color therapy, body detox, ministry, life coaching, weight and nutrition counseling.
Sacred Elements. Next to the Sweet Leaf, 400 South Dort Highway, Flint.
11 to 7 daily, closed Sunday.
Call 810-259-2570.
Don't miss the first ever cannabis competition this year as the prize contest moves from Amsterdam to Jamaica. That's right, it's all Jamaican fun now with the big competition in Negril this November. Get your best travel accommodations now at JamaicaPot.com. Pack your beach bong and swimsuit and party down at the warm sandy beaches of Negril, Jamaica for the first ever big cannabis event this year. Do it in style or come have fun on a budget. Best travel prices now at JamaicaPot.com. That's JamaicaPot.com.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show. Talk to you about prohibitionist messaging. It comes to us every day in various and sundry forms. It seems like every day when I pick up a story, and I do every single day, pick out stories about cannabis to talk to you about on this very show. And a lot of them are just slanted from this prohibitionist standpoint. That's what I was saying in this last segment, that not everybody has it in the recreational or the medical way. So there's going to be a lot of, and I predict, mark my words now, that this is just the beginning of a ramping up of the prohibitionist messaging in the face of a very pro-cannabis year, 2016. We've been waiting around in Michigan for the last since the last election cycle to get something done, both legislatively and when that started to fail or get twisted by people with money. And it has been. Now, make no mistake about it. We see your dirty little grubby fingers in there, you bastards. We see it going on. Well, some of us are our own people. Doesn't matter. You're still grubby bastards. So, you got to call it what you see. There's nothing wrong with making $1 in capitalist America. There's not. But when you go in and you screw the system and you start stealing away from the rest of everyday ordinary Americans who are already in business in a place, you shouldn't be doing that. But all that aside, you get this prohibitionist messaging, and it's going to ramp up in the coming year. It's going to ramp up as you in the face of some 11 states, I think at least, that are going to come on with new marijuana laws. Some of them medical, some of them recreational. I think we're going to add 11 states to the rules. It may be as many as 15 or 16 states to the rules. Some of them may happen before the election comes. Some of them may wait until the ballot petition arrives and the people voted in, and it will happen. Will there be any failures like Ohio? There could be. There well could be. But they won't be like Ohio's, quote unquote. Ohio failed because of the methodology that they had to. First off, they're trying to do both at once, which I don't think there's any problem with that. I think if they absent the messaging about the monopoly, because people saw it right away, that was like the first thing. There might be lawsuits about it. I think there already was. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I think it's a moot point at this point, isn't it? Point is that if they had left that monopoly off there, I think the people of the state of Ohio, as conservative as they are, would have voted in legalization and medical at the same time. It would have been a country first. I think you'll have that take place this time next year. I just think it's going to happen in at least one instance, maybe two. I think you'd have seen a lot more of them if indeed Ohio pulled it off, and they probably would have without that marijuana thing, the monopoly thing. So it's frustrating to watch that happen. There's still, like I said, the fallout from that is going to be months long. It might not. The people will still be talking about that this time next year. In fact, the historians are already talking about a point in time at which 85 years from now, when everybody's walking around freely with their cannabis that they purchased or sold or grew or whatever they did,
that they'll point back to this time. They'll focus in on 2015. 2016 will be talked about, but 2015 will be the preamble, won't it? And they'll point right to that Ohio election. Point is that there's going to be a lot of negative messaging. Look, as big as the steamroller is, there's going to be forces against that steamroller, and they're going to increase as the pressure builds. So you're going to have more stories like the one that I'm about to give you. And this really just steams my goat. Because the question I have about this story is, did this cop get money from public funds? And I don't care if it was from Nebraska or if it was from Colorado. I want to know if what he did was on public dime. You know, I know it's going to make me play. I know it's going to make me play a commercial, but I would much rather. Let you hear this for yourself. I was going to use this at the front end of the show, but I already had this other business about the refugee business. Here we go.
Our dedication.
No. So I think it's this is all commercial. See, I knew this was going to happen. It just always does. I'll just go ahead and say who they are. It's Nebraska Medical. It's a commercial for a hospital in Nebraska. You see, the reason I don't play this is because, you know, this is a Google commercial. Otherwise, I'd just let it slide and call it a day. I let them have their day. The thing is it's not relatable. If you're listening in Florida or in Michigan or anywhere else, nobody cares about Nebraska Medical. It's a Google spot. Here we go. Listen to this. Report's amazing.
On one side, parents desperately fighting to legalize medical marijuana.
Because I want my daughter to be able to access medicine for her epilepsy.
On the other, a Colorado police officer who's seen what that first step in the name of compassion has led to in his state.
You can be as tight and as regulated as you want at first, but you've jumped into the pool, so to speak, and that's where they want you.
James Gerhardt is a sergeant for the undercover drug unit that operates in the Denver metro area. He says legalizing medical marijuana was just the start. Then came recreational use. Now they've seen increases in fatalities and child abuse related to marijuana.
We're going to have to deal with dead drivers on the road. We're going to have to deal with kids hospitalized. We're going to have to deal with all those social problems.
Attorney General Doug Peterson.
Okay, so that's the thing that really pisses me off. I mean, you just hit the nail on the head right there. I don't want to interrupt it, but I did, and there's, at least another minute of this story to go, so I'll play it more of it. But that's it right there. I'm just going to replay that one part.
No use. Now they've seen increases in fatalities and child abuse related to marijuana.
What? We're going to have to deal with dead drivers on the road. We're going to have to deal with kids hospitalized. We're going to have to deal with all those social problems.
Attorney General Doug Peterson asked Gerhardt to talk to state senators and law officers. Nebraska considers expanding its legalization of cannabis oil.
We'd be foolhardy not to look at Colorado and look at Colorado closely, and that's why I think it's really important that he come.
The sponsor of LB 643, W. Senator Tommy Garrett, has declared he does not support marijuana for recreational use.
Oh, you're not going to run me out of my own damn show.
Much of the Colorado.
There you're gone now, aren't you? Blah. I'm in control, not you, Mr. Video Player. I don't care where you come from. It's got me Spitfire mad, didn't it? Where we go here? Did it make me lose the whole thing? It probably did. That's okay. I'll go back over here. It doesn't matter. I can't believe the player just went bonkers on me like that. I mean, seriously. This business... all right, I got to go back to the story now because it's just going to drive me insane until I go back to it here. I don't know why I went crazy, though. I mean, for crying out loud, it seems like that's the second time that's happened to me. Not on the air. Once it happened off the air. I'll let you listen to the rest of the story. Usually it lets me pause, but for some reason, the player was freaking out on me. It would not pause. I'd pause, and as soon as I'd pause it, it would. You take your finger off it, and go right back on it again. So let me see. Now is it going to make me? It's going to make me play the commercial again. If it does, I'm just going to read the stupid story because, yeah, they're going to make me play the commercial again. I'm not interested. So here we go. I'll just read you the story. Do we have enough time? Yeah, we got enough time. Colorado law enforcement official is warning Nebraska lawmakers against legalizing medical marijuana as lawmakers consider LB 643. And that sums it up for me right there, that my initial complaint. that there's a guy from Colorado who's a law enforcement, apparently an active law enforcement official, that is over there warning Nebraska, telling Nebraska lawmakers, hey, don't you legalize medical marijuana. Thornton Police Sergeant, now this guy's from Thornton, Police Sergeant James Gernhardt said he's seen what the drug has done in his state. Oh, no. You mean you're seeing something at your level that nobody else in the country is seeing? Is that what you're telling me, Sergeant Gernhardt? You can be as tight and as regulated as you want at first, but you've jumped into the pool, so to speak, and that's what they want, Gernhardt said. Oh, they got you where they want you now. Gernhardt, who is the sergeant for an undercover drug unit that operates in the Metro Denver area, said legalizing medical marijuana was just the start, and then came recreational use. Authorities said they've seen increases in fatalities and child abuse related to the drug. What the hell are you talking about? Where did you pull those numbers out of? Whose ass? I want to know. Because they're not accurate at all. Denver and Colorado in general have not seen any increase statistically in traffic fatalities overall compared with their relative. There's no statistical increase. The population's increased somewhat mostly because of the cannabis trade. But very tiny increases from 2008 to 2014 that are commensurate with the increases in population throughout that duration. Very tiny, statistically insignificant increases. I mean, we're talking almost a flat line in the number of traffic fatalities in Colorado. And for them to go off into Nebraska and not only falsely represent NHTSA's own data based on the information you provided the feds about your own traffic studies. I mean, this information comes from you people. But somehow that information isn't correct. And what you're telling these lawmakers who are considering medical marijuana, a very important thing for people in Nebraska, that this is just a skirt. Oh, this is just a start. And then the sky's going to cave in. None of that's true. And you ought to be ashamed of yourself. And what I want to know is, did you get paid public money? Did Nebraska's legislators pay you to come out to tell that story? Because if it was connected to somebody who was prohibitionist in Nebraska. I'll guarantee it. That didn't happen without invite, or unless it happened by solicitation. And if it happened by solicitation, I want to know if the Colorado Sergeant Gernhardt was on the public dime when he either solicited that call or accepted that offer, because I'm sure he did not go to Nebraska on his own dollar. It didn't happen. I want to know where that money came from, and which side do we point the finger at, or is it both? Is it public money that got spent for you to tell those lies in that other state? That's what I want to know. Because it's easy for me to prove that it's a lie. I'll just pull the actual statistics from your own records to show that you're not telling the truth. See, cops are really used to lying because it's very convenient for their craftiness. They're very crafty. They'll box people into a corner, lie them into a corner, and then trick information out of them. That's what they do. They're allowed to do it. But they're so free with lying because they're not lying to get criminals off the street. Sometimes they do. They're lying to make their case. They'll lie right there. I've seen them commit perjury routinely in courtrooms, and lawyers will tell you this all the time, so will other people who've had to go to court. Routinely commit perjury so that they can get their conviction, so that the prosecutor gets his day. It's this kind of crap that can't be stood for because you're violating the separation of powers. It's a constitutional separation. Gernhardt, who is the sergeant for an undercover drug unit, says authorities have seen increases in fatalities and child abuse related to the drug. You're just such a lying asshole. Child abuse. Pot. We're going to have to deal with the dead drivers on the road. We're going to have to deal with the kids hospitalized. We're going to have to deal with all those social problems. All those. Define all those. Tell me what's going on now in Colorado that didn't go on before, but you couldn't wrap your dirty, grubby money hands around it and drag people off to jail and ruin people's lives. You're just power hungry is what you are, you dirty little pigs. That's what you are. And I don't care if you're a cop and you wear that description. You wear that uniform, you wear that hat, but you don't fit the description that I just said, you're still a dirty little pig because you let your friends get away with it. You're just as guilty by association of besmirching the badge which you wear by letting them do that. Attorney General Doug Peterson has also addressed the impact Colorado's marijuana legalization is causing in Nebraska. Peterson said Peterson asked Gernhardt to talk to state senators and law officers as Nebraska considers expanding its legalization of cannabidiol, CBD. That's where it came from. It came from the solicitation, according to the story, came from the attorney general there. I think we would be foolhardy not to look at Colorado and at Colorado closely, and that's why I think it's really important to come, Peterson said. That's the AG. The argument for legalization has some parents passionate about the issue. Because I want my daughter to access medicine for her epilepsy, Sherry Lawler said. Bellevue Senator Tommy Garrett, the sponsor of LB 643, said he does not support marijuana for recreational use. According to his staff, much of Gernhardt's concerns are addressed in the bill, including no home growing plants, no smoking of the drug, and no edibles. Gernhardt said he feels for parents and kids, but legalizing the drug is not the right move. We should band together, all of us, and argue and push for proper research of cannabis, Gernhardt said. Tell that to the feds. Parents said lawmakers have to legalize it first. You know, maybe they'll find out that there is a medicinal benefit to cannabis. Really? Lawler said that. Senators are expected to resume the debate when they return in January. Apparently, it is a part-time legislature there. Like it is in so many places across the country. The prohibitionist messaging is it went away for a little while because everybody just said, the wave was overwhelming, right? Who's going to push back the wave? Nobody's going to even try. As you see 11 very concerned, we've already picked off the easy states. The low-hanging fruit for cannabis reform has been picked. Even some of the mid-level fruit has been picked. Some of it already. The higher fruit, the harder to get to fruit, as the rest of this plant ripens across the country, is going to take some more work. And along the way, there are going to be barriers in place, and some of those barriers are going to be people with picket signs saying things like this officer, regardless of whether they're true or not. They're going to be there backing that prohibitionist message because it's the boogeyman they still believe in. They were sold on it before. They still don't know who's under that sheet. And until they do, they're not going to stand behind anything that proliferates medical marijuana or cannabis without careful examination. Retail cannabis, I meant. So much more to talk about in the program today. There's some other stuff happening. More scaremongering. I got to give you another example of scaremongering because it never stops. And the police, another example of where police are real criminals. Shame on it. Stand by.
You're getting the full melt.
What's up with these things, Victor?
We decided to give ourselves stickers for each feature we release.
We read about 10,000 suggestions a week to create features that, as traders, we'd want to use.
10,000 suggestions? Who reads all of those?
He does.
For all the confidence you need, TD Ameritrade. You got this.
At book club, they were asking me what you're doing now, Janice.
Blogging. Your blog is just pictures of you in a mirror.
It's called a fashion blog, Todd. Well, I've been helping people save money with Progressive's discounts. Flo, can you get Janice a job?
You should have stuck to softball. I was so much better at softball than Jan is dead.
Where's your wife, Todd?
Vacation.
Discounts like homeowners, multi-policy. I got a discount on this ham.
I've got the meat sweats. It's good ham, Diane.
Paperless discounts. Give it a rest, Flo.
Yeah, Flo, give it a rest.
Don't miss the first ever cannabis competition this year as the prize contest moves from Amsterdam to Jamaica. That's right, it's all Jamaican fun now with the Big Cup competition in Negril this November. Get your best travel accommodations now at JamaicaPot.com. Pack your beach bong and swimsuit and party down at the warm sandy beaches of Negril, Jamaica for the first ever big cannabis event this year. Do it in style or come have fun on a budget. Best travel prices now at JamaicaPot.com. That's JamaicaPot.com.
We asked people to tell us something that happened in their past and something that might happen in their future. The good things were put on yellow magnets and the bad ones on blue. The results show the past was a pretty even mix of good and bad, yet the future was almost all good things. Now that you've seen the results of this experiment, what does it mean to you?
We all want to think about positive stuff.
Realistically, there will be downtimes.
It's great to think optimistically, but let's plan for whatever the future might bring.
Prudential, bring your challenges.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit PetPain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. PetPain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
We're back live on the show. You can hear us here Monday through Friday on thefullmelt.com. It's 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Now we're down to Daylight Savings Time as the kiddies have gone back to school. I'm Steve Green. You can also find us on iTunes really quick there at the top of the page at thefullmelt.com. Find the iTunes link, click, and subscribe. Just that easy. There's this this crotchety old puke at the LA Times. It's one of these guys that is talking about the prohibitionist crap. I'm on that bandwagon. I might as well beat that drum, right? I don't know. Tell me if you get tired of that story, because I'll never get tired of exposing the prohibitionists for who they are. And I want to know who, well, I know who's paying this guy, but I want to know who they're paying him, who's paying them. The weed warriors are back. Peddling pot for California, says George Skelton. You crotchety old bastard. And one old tale they're spinning is pure bunk. Is that too much tax money? It's that too much tax money, cop time, and jail space are wasted corralling and incarcerating marijuana users. Oh, he does a good job in this story of trying to tell you how that's just not true. Maybe that was true decades ago, but today it's a myth. No one gets busted and jailed for merely smoking a joint. We're talking about California here. Anyone who's caught possessing less than an ounce of marijuana, about a sandwich baggie full, is at worst cited for an infraction and pays a fine, like for a traffic ticket. If you're illegally trafficking, possessing a load for sale, or hawking the drug, it can either be a misdemeanor or a felony. But in California, says that reporter, his name is crotchety old George. Is it George? Crotchety old George Skelton. If you're in California, using marijuana to get a buzz has been decriminalized since the mid-1970s, says George. Young Jerry Brown signed that bill the first time he was governor. I'm not aware of any state or local law enforcement agency, large, medium, or small, chasing down people for smoking pot, says Chula Vista Police Chief David Bernardo. No, it's not Bernardo. It's Bejarano. Mr. Bejarano, president of the California Police Chiefs Association, says none has the time nor the staff for chasing these people down. It's not a high priority. So he uses a quote to back. I'm telling you, the guy's good. The only situation in which a weed toker would even be issued a citation, he says, is when cops are called because of a public disturbance. Really? Nothing. You've gone through all the California Police Department files and found nobody, right? That's what you're saying, Mr. Puke. Federal agents, of course, have their own rules the California voters and the state legislature could do nothing about. Only Congress can. The feds can still consider marijuana use a crime. They may create public confusion, and they do. But hardly anyone is locked up in California prisons or county jails on any type of marijuana sentence, whether for stashing bushels or large-scale trafficking. In prisons, only about 0.3% of the total inmate population is incarcerated for a marijuana offense. Really? Now, how many federal prisons do you have there? You got some federal prisons there in California. I know you do. And they're still locking up tons of Californians for growing some weed all the time. Of total California felony arrests last year, according to the state attorney general, just 3% were on any marijuana charge. And for misdemeanor arrests, it was less than 1%. But still, ending the failed drug war, focusing on real criminals and unclogging the courts is one of the pot pushers' favorite arguments, no matter how rooted in falsehood. See, I'm telling you, he's good. He's a good puke. Another grating, disingenuous spin, one brought into much of the media, by much of the media, is that we're talking about recreational use, quote unquote. It's a cynical abuse of English. On this, with him, I agree. Recreational, like jogging, hiking, or tennis, we're linking these healthy activities with sucking on a joint. Drink too much booze, you get drunk. You're not recreating. Imbibe responsibility, and you're a social drinker. Maybe ingesting marijuana should be called social toking. See, now he's thinking logically. Is marijuana bad for your health? Yes, says Dr. Donald Lindman of Sacramento, a retired physician and former board member of the California Medical Association. People do not use it to make themselves healthier, says this doctor. They use it to deal with other problems. It's a dangerous and ill-advised substance. That's why it has to be under control. Wait a minute. See, that's the key in his sentence right there, because this doctor is a proponent of legalization. That's why it has to be under control. Those are the key words in that sentence, or in that phrase, or in that paragraph. See, he says it's a dangerous and ill-advised substance. And people don't use it to make themselves healthier. They use it to deal with other problems. That's why it's got to be under control. That's the twist here. Lindman is co-leading a push to qualify a marijuana legalization initiative for the 2016 California ballot. His measure, the doctor says, would control usage, quality, and quantity. The proposal would also impose a 15% excise tax on retail sales. That's what it is. It's retail cannabis. Recreational pot. You call it recreational snowmobiling, right? Call it, I don't know, a recreational bath. You don't. You're taking a bath. You're riding a snowmobile. You're having a drink. It's not recreational booze. The proposal, this is the marijuana measure, one of about 10 floating around that is supported by Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom. It's also the proposal with the most traction, meaning broad support and money. Former Facebook President Sean Parker has committed millions to the initiative. It seems to be the measure with the strongest regulations. It's designed to complement legislation enacted this year to finally harness the medical marijuana sham authorized by California voters back in 1996. The new law will impose statewide rules on growing, transporting, and marketing the drug for so-called medicinal purposes. You see, as a kid, I never heard the word medicinal purposes unless we were talking about what they used to do with alcohol back in the 30s. Boy, if I was a prohibitionist, I'd be harping all over that idea. Instead, I pointed out to you nonetheless. The proposed initiative would permit people 21 and over to legally possess up to 1 ounce of pot for social use. They still couldn't smoke weed in public. Adults could grow up to 6 plants. Employers could fire stoners. The legislature could amend the law. Advertisers could not target minors. For children, marijuana can lead to addiction, says Lindman, who formerly headed the state's anti-tobacco ad campaign. People under 25 have twice as much potential for addiction as those older. Plus, he says marijuana can be mind-altering, and inhaling is dangerous for people with asthma. It's not good for you, he says. So why legalize it at all? The issue is control, Lindman says, regulated as alcohol is. Not so fast, says State Senator Kevin DeLeon of Los Angeles. Is it De Leon? It's Kevin DeLeon is what it is. We shouldn't rush into this. Personally, I'm not there yet. De Leon says he's witnessed too many drug tragedies in his legislative district and the barrio where he grew up in San Diego, the borough. It's misspelled here. I've seen it devastate members of my family and seen young people graduate from marijuana to other types of drugs, De Leon says, and it didn't turn out well for them. De Leon says California should wait. They should wait to assess the results of the new medical marijuana regulations and how legalization works in other states where, quote, the jury is still out. I think the jury has been in for a very long time now. Honestly, you might not agree. I want to see what works and what doesn't work and avoid unintended consequences, he says. It could be disastrous. This is not a game. It's not. Hang on. That's done. This is not a game. This is real life for young people. We've almost got a year to decide whether to legalize social pot. In the meanwhile, stop insulting our intelligence by claiming that stoners routinely get busted. And that's what I mean. This is what you're going to get from this point forward. You're going to hear a lot more of this. As I said before, it disappeared. It went away for a long time. I didn't hear this message mostly for the past 5 years. I haven't heard this messaging like this from mainstream reporters. All the mainstream reporters have been kind of mesmerized either by the criminality of marijuana and the busts going on associated with the grows that pop up when they pass laws. They're fascinated with running into a house with a bunch of plants in it. Make sure you get that on film. We need some file footage for pot. Get it on film. They're also mesmerized by the money end, the business end. Where's that going on? So either the crime or the money, they're focused on that, but they're lost on this ideal. When we come back after the commercial break, which is coming up shortly, I do want to touch on this point, and we will only have a few minutes to do it. But this is a story that outlines the idea of a wake-up call to me. It's not, for me, it's not a wake-up call. I've been very wide awake to this. But it should be a wake-up call to everybody else about how corrupt police are and that they are the real criminals, and shame on them for grinding patients through the criminal justice system. This story is out of Michigan, saying that there's no access now because medical marijuana patients are without caregivers. There's no caregivers out here anymore. And the dispensary, the only one we've got access to, has been raided and shut down. This is out in Muskegon. So that dateline from Muskegon coming back next on The Full Melt Show. Don't go away.
You're getting The Full Melt.
Young students are our future. They're eager to learn, eager to succeed, eager to make the world a better place. And they want to make it to school safely. Share the road, take care when passing, and always leave 3 feet between you and people on bikes. Bikes are legal road vehicles. We're all drivers.
Imagine a world where patients can use marijuana like any other medicine. The Marijuana Patients Organization challenges the status quo by helping our neighbors to enjoy a better quality of life. Visit the MPO at marijuanapatients.org and enjoy informative articles, engaging debates, and information about treatments, doctors, and dispensaries in your area. Over 50,000 people have registered at marijuanapatients.org since 2010. Join us at the Marijuana Patients Organization today, marijuanapatients.org.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571. 571.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
The girl in the pastry shop with the net in her hair is making a cannoli for you to take on your hiking trip in the woods with your bros that you've known since second grade. And you make kind of dragons or ruffians and be called upon to employ your testosterone in a battle for supremacy and access to females glued to the TV. And even if you are victorious, you may receive many cuts, bruises, and scrapes, and you will require...
So I'm trying to get a Butters update on. I haven't done a Butters update. We usually do them on Fridays. Butters is the goat out on the hemp farm, the family hemp farm of Mr. Joe Brown out there in West Michigan. So I was hoping to get out there and talk to Joe. Hopefully we'll get in touch with him, if we've got time especially, before the end of the program. I'd like to get a Butters update and find out what's going on out there. This business about these people in West Michigan out in Muskegon. The story's from Fox 17 online. There's no access. Medical marijuana patients without caregivers. Dispensary shut down. Dateline. Oh, should I just play it? Oh, it's going to... See, I just want to play it for you. I'm going to play it, but I got to wait because it's going to make me play a stupid West Michigan commercial. Yeah, see, here it goes. Oh,
you learn about your coverage, the more gaps you might find. Like how you thought you were covered for all this when you're really only covered for this.
Hot dog.
Or how you may think you're covered for this, but not for this.
Oh, no.
For this. For this.
Thanks for a terrible radio commercial, by the way.
Talk to farmers and see what gaps could be hiding in your coverage.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Okay, there we go. Here's the story.
Since voters passed the Medical Marijuana Act, many card-carrying patients and caregivers say they were wrongfully rated because they thought that they were protected under the law. Well, instead, many of these people are being charged and convicted.
So could confusion between state laws and local laws be at fault here? Fox 17's Dana Chiklis live in the control room tonight with more on this issue and a recent raid of a West Michigan dispensary.
Right. Well, Christian, we've showed you the state police data that showed since the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act passed back in 2007 and enacted in 2008, until last year, the arrests for marijuana went up 17%. In fact, last year alone, there were more than 20,000 arrests just for using marijuana. So what about dispensaries? Why are some raided and others seemingly untouched? Today, I met with a Muskegon caregiver who opened a dispensary, saying it was raided in April and taking him for all he's worth.
That's medical quality marijuana.
Paul Miller is a card-carrying caregiver.
So in my mind, looking at the law, I felt I was just helping customers and helping patients.
So in 2011, he opened the Muskegon Medical Marijuana Dispensary because as a patient himself, he couldn't find affordable medical-grade marijuana, something he says is badly needed in Michigan.
There's no access. You have 136,000 patients. You have 24,000 caregivers. Not all 24,000 caregivers grow for 5 patients.
To Paul, quality is king. When he was in business, he says patients were calling him across the state.
It's difficult for any patient. There's still patients out there today, I'll guarantee you, that have nowhere to turn, nobody to call, and no way to get medical marijuana.
But last April, his large-scale caregiving was cut short. West Michigan enforcement team officers showed up with a warrant, raided him, and shut down his dispensary. He says they took him for all he's worth. Court documents show officers also seized more than $16,000 from the dispensary safe, and Paul says they emptied $25,000 from his business bank account the next day, charging him with a 15-year felony for growing and delivering 45 kilos of marijuana. But part of the problem here, Paul says, is that part of the 45 kilos cops took wasn't just pure marijuana, but total weights of medibles like brownies.
That's the whole thing. The state's just creating criminals almost as fast as they can pump them out of jail, you know. But it's really sad, you know, that the people that pay the price are the actual patients and the people that can't afford to.
Paul wanted to fight the charge all the way to a jury, but the high legal costs forced him to take a plea deal this week.
When it comes down to it, you can only hold out until you're broke and you can't eat. And so now we're looking at 18 months probation, which I have to pay $30 a month to the city. And then, of course, $650 in court costs. So you're looking at another $1,000 to Muskegon, including the $29,000 the state police stuck in their pocket.
When it comes to the pending medical marijuana legislation, Paul says with police wanting to phase out the caregiver, he doesn't buy it.
But I really feel it's bad to limit and have a certain amount of commercial grows. The only people it's good for is the state and the people with money that can afford to pay the licensing.
Paul there saying he's a skeptic of some of this medical marijuana legislation that's on the table. Part of that police testimony we showed you earlier on Tuesday, police saying they want to cut out the caregiver completely. So for now, if you've been a victim of marijuana crimes and you feel that they're wrong, shoot me an email so I can continue to investigate it. For now, we're in the control room. Dana Chiklis, Fox 17 News.
Dana, thanks for that report tonight. With coalition air support.
So that's what's going on out there in Muskegon. Look, we're 7 years into the Medical Marijuana Act here in Michigan. 7 years in. And they're still arresting patients and caregivers, providers of people for obviously medical marijuana. They don't like the fact that these distribution centers have been set up at all. They don't like it. They don't like when people are getting access to their medicine. They don't like the patient caregiver system one bit here in Michigan. The legislators, the law, especially law enforcement. You know why? Because it takes some of their low-hanging fruit away, doesn't it? It takes some of those instant. Look, the reason that I primarily played that for you, and I wanted to stop it really bad, I did, but I was afraid that the thing was going to freak out again and not let me pause it and restart it again. So I didn't want to put you through that. But the essence of that story is this. See, if they just charged him with the pot crime, absent the forfeiture laws, if they just push through this. See, they took everything from him. Let's just make that. Here's what they do with the forfeiture laws and why they use it in the criminal proceedings, because the forfeiture proceedings are civil procedures. Civil asset forfeiture, that's the law. So it's a civil proceeding. There's no criminal proceeding there. They're seizing your assets civilly. So the burden of proof is lower. They actually shift the burden of proof back onto you. You have to prove that your stuff wasn't used in the commission of a crime or isn't proceeds from a crime. But in order for you to even make that proposition to a courtroom, in order to have your equal justice day in court on that civil procedure, you've got to go and post 10% bond on the real market value what the police assess of the property that they seized. In the case of this man in West Michigan who had the dispensary, they seized all of his medibles and weighed them as just raw marijuana. So you got a brownie, and the thing weighs, 3 ounces or 5 ounces. A brownie, that's 5 ounces of weed. That's what they're going to call it, even though it's not. See, the drug laws let them do that. My point is this: they're not after the $650 they managed to push this man into, and they wouldn't have been able to push him into. He'd have went and defended himself if they didn't take all his money that he could defend himself with. See, they say, look, and the same thing with the asset forfeiture. Look, you can have your stuff back, but within 20 days of the time that we seize it, you've got to post a 10% bond for the value of those goods. Now, why would they do that? Why would they make that part of the civil asset forfeiture? Well, because that way, see, you don't have any money. They've already taken it all from you. They know you can't post that bond. It might take you a little bit of time to raise it, so they put a limitation of 20 days on it. If you don't post that bond, they get to automatically keep all that stuff. It's as if it was just as if it landed in their driveway with a big bow on it. The police got 80% of $29,000 in their pockets for raiding these medical patients, their access through this man. He wasn't out there slinging weed on the street. He could have easily done that if he wanted to. He didn't. He opened up a dispensary and carded people as they came in, and they came and raided his facility and took $29,000 from him. The state only got $650 plus their $30 probation fee to cover those costs. See, that's all part of this, too. They got to keep those people employed. This is the game of making money and policing for profit in the prohibition of marijuana, and why police and the prohibitionist messaging this show is about are ramping it up because they want the last little grubby bastion of cash that's available to squeeze out of this cow. They want it, and they want it now. They're trying to squeeze it before this all changes. They see the tide of turning, and in the case of Michigan, the very prohibitionists who are profiting off the backs of most of these sick medical patients now, profiting off of prohibition, these same people are now seeing the tide turn, and now they want to switch the medical bills off in their favor so that only they can make that same profit legally.
The Full Melt Show is a production of TFM Media.